welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I'm your host, JP John Poz. With me today, very, very special guest. He's a WWE Hall of Famer, WWE Grand Slam champion, ECW World, TV, and Tag Team champion. He's done it all, been there, he's done that. He is one of a kind. He's Mr. RVD, Rob Van Dam. Rob, welcome back to Two-Man Power Trip. How you doing?
I am doing excellent, dude. Very good.
What's going on in your world? What have you been up to lately?
Just got back from Georgia doing a trip in the personal priorities. Katie's brother graduated, so we went to Atlanta. Had a great time making a video out of it for my YouTube page, though. I just got some editing software, and now whenever I have a few minutes, I'm trimming videos and stitching them together, and
Nice.
And that's something that I'm having a lot of fun with. I think I told you about the RVD Theology episodes, but in between that, I'm getting better and better at just capturing content because I've always sucked at that, for years. My Instagram, I post once every 2 months, really bad, But
yeah,
anyway, just got back from that. I will be in Hoopeston, Illinois on Saturday with The Godfather. I've never heard of Hoopeston either, but
yeah.
we're going, and then come back for a couple of days, and then I go to Japan. I have a match June 12th for Noah, and I'm really stoked for that. This will be my first time going back to Japan in quite a while, I guess, since maybe a WWE run in 2014.
Wow, that's awesome. I had no idea you're going back to Japan. That's really cool. Pro wrestling always building itself back up again.
Yeah, and it's for me just my connection. The whole story. I mean, Japan gets taken out of my my biography a lot of times. It just does.
Yeah.
But it's really where I learned a lot. And from '93 to '97, I wrestled for All Japan. Mr. Baba died. And then Mrs. Baba took over, and a lot of the boys didn't get along with Mrs. Baba. Our top Japanese dude, Misawa, left, started Noah competition, and then here it is now. 25 years later, now I'm going back, and I'll be wrestling for Noah for the first time.
Pretty awesome. Yeah, you're right. People always forget you wrestle for All Japan, in there with Misawa, Kawada, Kobashi, even Mike Awesome for a period of time there, of course. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why do you think that is? That's odd because you had some pretty good barn burners over there.
I assume it's because that was either pre-internet or right when the internet was starting. I think it was mostly pre-internet. It was around that time. I don't think people were VHS trade taping, but I think that maybe people don't know about it as much because they didn't have the accessibility. I mean, that's just a guess, though. I mean, I started there when I was just 22, and really learned to put it together over there by getting the shit kicked out of me by Kawada and a lot of the other older Japanese guys that felt like I needed to be humbled a little bit, wearing a black belt, doing jumping spin kicks over there.
Yeah.
With my rosy red cheeks and bare feet. But they were right. And then, I really did learn to put it together there. As a matter of fact, one very pivotal match I had was with Danny Croffett in 96. Might have been 95. I think it was 96. And, man, I learned so much in that match. I'll just always remember it that way. That he taught me that it matters when you do your moves in the match, you got to learn how to connect with the emotions and build them with the crowd. And without all that time in Japan wrestling in front of that awesome crowd, I wouldn't be the same RVD.
You like that style? They're obviously a little bit more snug and stuff like that.
I love that. Yeah, I always loved the style. Didn't love the traveling as much. Wasn't into the food as much. As I got older and more experienced, especially after Sabu came over to our company, and I could travel with Sabu. He taught me a lot more about how to get around, because the first tours, all the young boys, the whole goal is to try to not spend any money because it's so expensive. So all the boys would bring big bags of tuna fish for some reason, you can't get that there. And peanut butter, and you try, and it's like, no, don't drink a Coke out of your refrigerator in your room. That's 300 yen, and across the street it's 120 yen, and it was like that. And then after a while, when I was making more money, and had Sabu to kind of take me under his wing, I was finding a yakiniku steakhouse every night, and then really enjoying it a lot more. But at first, it was just the matches, the competition, that athletic style, the no gimmicks that I really, really was drawn to. But I was homesick, paying dues to get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be what, 14-hour flight or whatever it is? I mean, that can't be fun either.
No, that's not fun. And then sometimes we would have like lots and lots and lots of bus rides. Sometimes we'd have like a 10-hour long bus ride. And then we would hop on a ferry, drive the bus onto the ferry, go across a waterway, and then still have like another 2-hour drive. And it was a lot of that. And, being young, it wasn't like you could just say, hey, I got to piss. Can you pull over? You know what I mean? Because you got that peer pressure, that mentality. Like, I don't want to get any heat or, had everybody mad at me. And so there's all that frat boy pressure to the dressing room stuff. So I didn't enjoy that. A lot of the guys would like piss in Gatorade bottles, and I'd see them pissing all over the seat. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, like that is so nasty. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, right. Gross.
Long ride there. But it was something where right away I felt appreciated. And then more and more as I was there, they let me really know how much they appreciated me, the fans and Baba. Even, like Phil LaFont, Danny Crawford, he was telling me, like, he would say, like, if you ask me in front of people, I'm going to totally deny it. Don't tell anybody I told you this, but Baba loves you. You got a future here. And so that was something that was different, I think, than other places in its own flavor. Baba saying, what do you need? What do you want to make you happy? It was good, enjoyable, Eastern loyalty. It was a good experience.
What was about Baba that you liked so much that, a lot of the other guys did too, but they didn't like about the wife? It's just because she doesn't really know the business, or, what was the disconnect with the wife?
I can't speak for experience because, I didn't talk to her that much. I talked to her a few times, not enough to really know her. And with Baba, it wasn't like I was hanging out with him, going to his house and golfing with him, So to me, it didn't make as much of a difference. Guys like Masawa, Kawada, Tawe, Kabashi, those guys like grew up there in that company underneath Mr. and Mrs. Baba. So they had a lot more of a personal relationship that I really wasn't privy to.
Were you hanging out with Johnny Ace those days?
A little bit. But I was on the other side of the fence. There was literally an invisible fence right in the middle of the bus, and the hoods were in the back and the office was in the front. And it was so ridiculous thinking back about that mentality, but that's when I was young. That's what got put into my brain. And that's what I identified with when we get to Nagoya. I'm looking forward to scoring some hash so we can smoke. That automatically made me a hood. Even if I wasn't into coke and acid and meth, all the crazy shit that everybody was into, I still would end up with that crowd in their room. And Johnny Ace would be office. He would maybe get something to eat with Stan Hansen or Dale Wilkes or maybe Doug Furness. And it's weird how that bothered Gary Albright so much. Like every single day, Gary Albright talked all day about how much he hated Ace. And there was so much heat there, like Jungle Jim Steele. Remember him?
Oh God, yeah. I interviewed him not that long ago. Yeah, I loved him. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, man. I haven't talked to him probably since this story I'm going to tell you. But big, jacked up, 280-pound bodybuilder dude. We're coming out of the Hard Rock one time, us hoods, in Roppongi, and we get a few steps out the door, and then Gary all of a sudden he would turn heel when he would drink. They called him Hyde. And he turned heel on Jim. And he was just like, I'm not going anywhere with this fucking pussy. And whoa, where's this coming from? He's like, fuck that, I'm not going anywhere with him. You're Ace's boy. We're like, oh, come on, Gary, not this again. No, fuck that. You were with Ace all day, man. You're fucking stooge. And Jim was like, Gary, what? I mean, I like both of you guys, whatever. Gary went smack, and he smacked him so hard across the face that we all felt it,
Yeah.
Like, oh, poor Jim. Jim's such a good guy. And now he has to really either eat shit or what's he going to do? Respond in a retaliatory way, which would not be pretty, especially with a drunk Gary Albright wanting to time in a pretzel. But it was like that. So it was so weird. But of course, I never had any issues. I like Johnny. And I don't know what that was about. It was almost like mythical, like the like having the heaven and hell pulling at each other
Right.
on the bus, and it getting a little bit political from there. Not that Gary had enough pull, to bury you if he didn't like you or anything, but he had his way of pouting and making you realize his feelings.
Man, I wouldn't want to be on Gary Albright's wrong side. Oh my God.
No.
He was a beast. He was a monster.
Yeah.
Kind of like a undervalued, just great gaijin like legend. I mean, he was a beast.
Yeah, he wrestled so stiff, and like everybody knew that he could scrap, and he came up Nebraska amateur champion, like less guy you want to fuck with. And when he would drink, he would want to fight. I mean, his very first tour that he came over from UWF or UHF, whichever it was. We were in a bar. Everyone's getting along fine. A little while later, after some beers, he's down on his knees with his hands behind his back, talking to some military dude that happened to have pissed him off. Going, come on, pussy boy! Come on, pussy boy, hit me! And we're just like, oh my God, this dude. Yeah.
Well, crazy. Did you think at that point though, if like when people look back at that like Kings Road era, if you will, of All Japan, they always say, "Wow, it's like the greatest rosters." Like, when you're in it, do you think like, "Wow, look, there's Hanson, there's Dr. Death." Like, do you look at it like, "Wow, what a roster I'm under here"?
Not me.
No?
And not since I was probably in my early 20s. Kind of had that Mark mentality taken out of me and replaced with a perspective of competition. And then it's weird because now it's like this could be someone that I looked up to as a hero when I was a kid, never having a clue that I would even be able to wrestle with them at that level. But now that it's real life, I'm thinking, man, you know what? I want to beat this dude's ass. Like, fuck this guy. And here he is, someone that I thought was a superhero before. Now I'm literally measuring myself up against him because of, some real non-work issues, and it's like total different perspective. And the way the competitive mind takes over, it feels like that with everybody, like, everyone's jockeying for position. Everyone's trying to either stab each other in the back or get ahead at the other one's expense, and just all that stuff. The way it gets to me, I always kept my circle really close, really small circle. Yeah. And really, like, it's been really refreshing the last few years to break out of that state of mind and not feel like that anymore. Like, I don't feel competitive anymore. I feel like, dude, I got life more figured out now. Maybe I was still trying to build a name, and maybe that's why it was so important. I don't know. But now I feel more like, okay, I'm good. I got my path. You have your path. That's awesome that our paths are crossing together right now, and we're having some adventures. And I don't have to worry about how you're going to cut me off, so to speak.
Yeah. That competitive edge is kind of gone. You're very Zen-like. Very Zen.
Yeah, it's so much better for me and for my spirit, so much healthier. When I look back to having that mindset, like when people ask about my relationship with certain wrestlers, I have to think back to how I felt at that time 20 years ago. And man, a lot of those guys that even if they were like really good guys, I had reasons, whether it was, them being snug in the ring or something, whatever. But I'd have reasons, to be like, still feel like I had to have my my defense up around all the time. And now it's more like when I see people, some of the people that I didn't get along with maybe, or didn't think that I liked for years. And now when I see them, it's like, oh, cool, man, you're still alive. Good for you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep. Now, you mentioned RVDology, and obviously the YouTube, you're starting it up, you're starting to get some stuff. Just explain to everybody what it is, because I know you have stuff out there like karma and perception and speaking in absolutes, but what is RVDology?
So basically, I mean, it's my way of life. And so I'm sharing some important qualities and principles, values that I have, because I feel, like it's lacking in the world. And I'm afraid for society. I mean, sometimes people seem so dumb, that I feel I lose my faith in humanity. And then there's other times where I think, people have potential. Sometimes someone will contact me and they'll just say, hey man, I heard you tell this story one time, blah, blah, blah. It changed my life. Those little stories mean so much to me, and that motivates me. And so what RV Theology is it's pointing out how important to me, and I'm different than everybody, but these are ways people can find they relate. Eventually they'll find ways that they don't relate, for sure. But things that maybe aren't talked about, and then people are like, yeah, now that you mentioned, I didn't think about it, but you're right. That makes a lot of sense. I actually hope to help people in that way, help steer them in their path so that they can make better decisions. So I do it by explaining the values and then sharing stories that I love telling stories. And all the stories on RV Theology, they've never been heard before. None of them. They're all like stories I've never told before. And at the same time, I'm also recording longer stories. A lot of these aren't as appropriate for general consumption, but they're more appropriate for someone that might be like buying a book. And I'm documenting a lot of those stories. And again, no one's ever heard any of these stories. I guess for me, that's more interesting. I do a lot of podcast interviews. I haven't done that in a while before agreeing to do this, and appreciate you letting me talk about RV Theology. My YouTube page is The Real RVD, and I like to share this. But a lot of the podcast interviews seem, like the same questions over and over. What was your crowning moment, and who was your toughest opponent? And it's like, I guess for me, like a lot of the really fascinating stories where I can remember I learned and pivoted a little bit at that point in life, in a good way. That's what fascinates me, because these are stories that are pretty exciting. And some of them are about other wrestlers backstage in the ring. Some of them are when I was a kid, whatever. And since I'm on the production end of it, though, by the way, I'm learning as I'm going. So sometimes, the audio is a little scratchy or whatever, but I'm getting there. The newer ones tend to be better than the original ones.
So you're doing all your own stuff, like you're doing your own editing, you're doing everything by yourself in house.
Yeah, I am at this point. Yeah, and I enjoy it, but the editing some of the, like I have a phone app that I just got, and I added this episode that I just posted today on my YouTube page about my awesome Memorial weekend. And man, it was fun. Every time I'd have a few minutes, I'd be like trimming a scene, stitching stuff together, rearranging orders. And I had fun with that one. With the RV Theology, it's a lot harder because I'm using OBS. And for me, that's a lot harder than the little phone app, but it's a different thing. But it's a different thing with a green screen behind me. And, maybe it'll morph into something else eventually. But what it is right now is I try to keep people's attention long enough, to make it to the end. But I like to warm up with how I feel about what we're talking about, and then, share some really personal stories.
It was interesting. I was looking on there. I was like, tiny Zeus Lidster. What in the heck did you run into Zeus? But that's pretty interesting. You know what I mean? Like, that's something I don't think I've ever heard before. You and Zeus crossing paths.
Yeah. This was in Thailand in 2001. I went there to film this movie, Black Mask 2. And the conditions were not favorable to the seasoned, actor. He had lots of reasons to complain, but I was really happy. Man, this is awesome. I'm doing martial arts movie in Thailand. They're paying me, good. I'm working with Wu Ping, who created the cable stunts in Matrix, where you're flying all over. I was really excited, but it was a third world country. It was dirty. We had to get tetanus shots before we went there. We were told we couldn't eat any food that had already been opened. It had to be right out of the package. Or if we were in a really nice restaurant, that was an exception. But we couldn't open your mouth in the shower, none of that. So I tell a story when I'm talking. I'm not really sure. I don't remember exactly what the value was that I talk about in that one. But what I will always remember was he was so miserable, and probably rightfully so. I remember when we went to eat, and I'm looking at the fruit and stuff, going, there's flies all over it, and I'm going, I don't see how we're gonna. And he was just like, we can't eat this shit. My mama can't make me eat this. And it was like, he's right. And then he's like saying, our hotel needs to be condemned. And he heard that it was condemned, and they were going to be tearing it down, and he needed to stay somewhere else. And he was just always complaining the whole time, which he had a right to, but at the time, I could have seen him as, not someone I really enjoyed working with, and it got to a point where he rubbed off on me and made me react in a way where I exploded on the crew because they had fucked up. I ended up face down in a mud puddle after we talked about how everything was going to go. And he was like, you let them know, you can't let them get away with that. And he fired me up. And so I'm like, hey, what the fuck? And then right away I was like, that's not me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
Like, wait a minute, that's him. And I got to control my own reactions to what happened and to what the way that he's acting, And so these are things that I love to tear apart and really look at, with different examples and point out things that, like I said, people probably don't think about, but if you really do think about it, priorities is one. I haven't even talked about this one yet, but I believe if everybody got to know their own priorities and had that inner relationship and knowledge, it could help their life so much, because people struggle with wondering why they do things, like, God, why do I keep cheating on my girlfriend? Or why is it that I can't study, for this class and I know I need to? Well, guess what? If you really looked at what was the most important to you, and I have ways of doing that, and it's all step by step, giving like little pieces at a time. But if you really get to know yourself, then you'll realize, oh, I do this. I cheat on her because it's more important to me to get laid than it is, to to take this risk when I don't think I'm going to get in trouble anyway. And anyway, I just, I'm a thinker. I'm usually the quiet guy with my mouth shut, unless I'm getting paid or interviewed to talk. And I'm usually studying, and I'm usually in my head, as Katie puts it. I spend a lot of time in my head. This is a way of me sharing it. And people ask me all the time, like, dude, how can I be as cool as you? Or teach me your Zenfo way. I am, dude. Watch RVD Theology. There's a lot. You got to put it all together.
And with Zeus, it was different angles, which is true. Like his different angles, and then you ended up having a little bit of different perspective, like you mentioned. So very cool. Like the ideology of RVD, if you will, RVD Theology. It's very interesting to kind of get in your head.
At the time, I was thinking, man, this guy's an asshole. I even wanted to fight him at one time, because we had some words. I was talking about wrestling in ECW, and this is 2001. If you remember, I was at an intersection where I could have gone any way I wanted. WWE wanted me, WCW wanted me. I wanted ECW to survive, so I wouldn't have to go there. Well, I guess Tiny thought that I was bragging and full of shit and bullshitting, but I was just stating the way it was. And he reacted in a way, said, I don't know nothing about no ECW. All I know is that when Hulk Hogan walk in the room, men get down on their knees. Grown men on their knees when Hulk Hogan walk into the room. That's all I know. And I was like, he's trying to offend me, I think, but I don't disagree. I mean, Hulk Hogan's the man. I get that.
Yeah.
But and it wasn't until one of the guys told me later they thought I was full of shit until they saw me on TV. And they were like, oh, my God, he is the whole fucking show. Like, why would I lie and bullshit? But a lot of people would, I guess. I wouldn't, but a lot of other people would. So I went from thinking like, man, this guy's been a pain in the ass, the worst negative energy on the set. Let's get him out of here. To now seeing a bigger picture, I look at it like he had his own experience there. Couldn't wait to get off the movie. He left after 5 days, and he was probably promised a hell of a lot more than was delivered. Hey, stop it.
With you and 01, it is interesting because WCW wanted you, right? ECW had you, and then WB, you'd eventually end up there anyway, but they wanted you at that point. I mean, was that a big time life decision to kind of stick with the ECW at that point, or was it easy to kind of walk away right before they ended?
Well, it was like I was really learning to pay attention to the universe and the signs, more so later that, in 2007 when I left WWE on my own choice. That was when I was really studying my path. But it was like my gut told me, stay in ECW. That's where I'm happiest. That's the artistic expression that I preferred and wanted to do, and was hoping the audience would grow to a point where that would substantiate a living for everybody. WCW had straight up offered me a contract, with numbers on it, and WWE was, competing against that, and also we had the invasion thing that we had done, so I knew they're watching me. It was just the way that it was, I was like, I wasn't lying to say I was in high demand at the time.
Was it a lot of money from WCW? Was it like so much you're like, maybe I might go there for the money, even though I might not be happy, I might go there?
I think I like to say that I would consider anything, I mean, even if considering means asking myself, do I want to do that? No, to me, that was worth considering, whatever that was that I just asked myself, Yep. This was more money than I had made before, but Paul had to step it up then and then offer me something to compete with that. So that's what happened. Paul said, I don't want you to go to WCW. And, what can I do to get you to stay here? And, of course, amongst other things, that also included a decent guarantee. And I had favored nations in ECW. A lot of people don't know that.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I don't think I've even said that publicly, but I did, and that was one of the many things along with my preference to really want to stay in ECW. I didn't want to sell out and become a character and just be a puppet for someone else's imagination like that. That wasn't appealing to me.
Wow, how did the favored nation? Of course, favored nations meaning that if somebody comes along, let's say Dreamer makes a certain amount, you equal that or above that, right? So you would be the highest paid guy, basically, no matter what, right?
Which at the time we were bringing Sid Vicious in, and I was thinking, hey, this protection might, be a factor here pretty soon. Like what are we paying that guy? But yeah, that's what it is, and it was contract negotiations. I had a guarantee. Whether it was annual and then broken down or whatever, I knew what I was going to get every 2 weeks or whatever when we got our check. I think it was every 2 weeks. And I was getting that. So even when some of the money wasn't coming in and the other guys had checks that were bouncing, I wasn't getting some of the money. I never got the pay-per-view bonuses, the revenue. I never got any royalties for the action figures or T-shirts. But even though I wasn't getting that, I was still getting a guarantee that was comparable to what WCW was offering me. So I wasn't complaining. Although I was digging a bigger and bigger hole by letting the royalties build up. And eventually that did become a problem that I couldn't get around.
How did the favored nations come along? Is that something just you brought up and like, I need this to be secure here. I could go elsewhere and make more money. I mean, that's basically how it came about.
I can't actually remember the exact way, it was just something talked about in negotiations. You negotiate the contract, it's like, hey man, I gotta have my travel. Paul would pay for our flights. He had someone that would book flights for people, but they would book them like hours before their flight. It was crazy. You probably heard stories about that. I would book my own flights and then just tell him, hey, it was $500, and he'd reimburse me. Sabu, who had the Winnebago, he would drive in, and then Paul would give him the money for a plane ticket, but Sabu would keep it and drive in. We all had like our own deals, I got to have my hotel taken care of or whatever. It was negotiation tactics. I don't think I had an agent at that time. Maybe I did though. I don't know. I had an agent in 2001 when I worked my first deal out with WWE, but I think that was the very first time I brought him into wrestling. He was supposed to be a Hollywood dude, and I brought him in as a buffer and regretted it later with WWE because there was nothing he could do for me. I was there face to face every day with these guys, and he's but anyway, I really don't know exactly how it came up. Somebody offered it or asked for it, and it was agreed upon.
Pretty good spot to be in, though. You know what I mean? To have that favored nations. I know Hall Nash famously had it in WCW, but I mean that's a great spot to at least get that guarantee. I know other people had issues, like Shane Douglas always said, like, "Oh, I wasn't getting paid. Paul owes me 144K," or you know what I mean? It piles up. So that was good for you on your end. Smart.
Yeah, I never. You're not gonna find any interviews of me bitching about my checks bouncing and me starving and stuff because I wasn't suffering during that time. But as much as we know Paul, and I didn't think about this back then, but it's probably safe to assume I wasn't the only one that had favored nation. He probably maybe all of us top guys, maybe Dreamer, maybe that would be very Paul like.
Yeah. PJ, just incredible buddy of mine. He tells me stories of like he's on the phone with Shane or somebody, and PJ standing next to him, and Paul is like bullshitting him and giving the finger to the phone and I'll give you that money, blah blah. So Credible leaves, and he's like, the next person comes in, he does the same thing to me. F you, PJ, you're not getting that money, like that kind of stuff from Paul.
Yeah,
he's like,
the stories have been told to death, but that it was like that for me when they would book the flights. If I had to fly out Friday morning to be there Friday evening, I would be up all night, stressing that they're not going to book my ticket. I'm like, it's after midnight. Like, is this canceled? Are we not doing it? Hold on, any minute now. And sometimes it would be 2, 3 in the morning. It's like, boom, we got your itinerary. You fly out at 6. That was at the time it was okay. I mean, after I had a little more experience, I don't think I could have handled doing business that way.
Yeah, there's like got to be a lot of stress involved with that. Like, oh shit, when's the flight? Well, I can't miss the show,
But it would have been their fault if I missed it. So there was that. I mean, it's not like if you look at it like that. If you look at it like I'm going to let the fans down, no way around that. But if you look at it like, oh, hope I don't get in trouble for no showing, it's on him. You know what I mean? And sometimes I would fly that bereavement fare where I give a different name because you got a discounted ticket. And that was all part of it. Yeah.
George Costanza on Seinfeld style. Yeah, that bereavement fare. Yeah.
But nonetheless, though, I didn't want to leave. That's where I had the most fun. And now, I'm still wrestling, not nearly as many matches, but pretty much whenever I do, usually everyone expects it to be an Extreme Rules match. just because that's where I thrive. That's my, that's what they want to see and stuff usually. So usually it ends up getting extreme, and that is where I'm happiest still.
Back in ECW, I know it's funny to look back at it now. It's like, wow, the TV champion is more popular than the world champion. No matter who the world champion was, it just seemed to be that way when you're the TV champion. Was that like on purpose by Paul, or was it like destined for you to unseat the world champion and be double champ? You know what I mean? It felt like that kind of thing where it's like, wow, the TV champion is here, the world champion is just a step below. When you were the champ, did you have that same kind of sense of where you're supposed to be the world champ?
Well, that was my vision. Was I wanted to have both belts eventually, but maybe still. But once the TV belt meant more than the heavyweight belt, if I had them both, then I could still put the TV belt forward and thereby still increasing the value of both, because the heavyweight champion is always going to have the built-in grandfathered-in value of being the champion. I wanted to have both belts. I wanted to wrestle Mike Awesome for it because I thought he was a great champion.
Yep.
And it was talked about. I can't tell you what Paul's plans were because I'm sure, if we talked that far ahead, I'm sure he told me one thing and Mike one other thing, so I can't really say what his plans were, but that was something I enjoyed doing. I wasn't in a hurry to do it, because like the fans would be screaming RVD, like sometimes through the whole show till they came out at the end. What do I need the heavyweight belt for? And then I felt it was on me. I felt the burden, the pressure of making sure that they got their money's worth because I was so high on ECW, pushing it, promoting it everywhere. You got to see ECW. It's the best. So I really wanted them to feel like, man, you're right. That's, and so I really felt like my efforts did make a difference at that time. And that in itself was so rewarding. Best, most fun time out of my whole career. And also, those matches that I had, part of that is, I think, being hungry, so that's the paradox of it, is like eventually you don't want to be that hungry anymore. But then when you're not that hungry, then the fire doesn't burn quite the same way. And you find other reasons to do it. But I mean, it's just a little bit different. When I was building my name still, and I was like, man, every time, people leave this building, I want them to tell people about me. And then those people come. Like after a while, when you lose perspective of that on a different scale, then, then there's certain tiers of competition that are lowered, for better or worse, maybe right. It's, yeah.
To me, like when you're building yourself up, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, when you beat Bigelow, or you have that match with Bam Bam Bigelow, I feel like that is what really, like, okay, RVD's awesome, I love this guy, but when you beat Bam Bam, then it's like, oh shit, like, okay, he's a main eventer now, like, you know what I mean? Like that brings you to another level to me, because to me, Bam Bam, I love Bam Bam. I think he helped Taz, I think he helped Shane immensely, but I always felt like, wow, when you beat him, it's like, wow, holy crap, he beat Bam Bam.
Yeah, no question about it. That match goes down as definitely one of the very important moments in my career. And I didn't understand it. Paul knew it was going to happen. I feel like I've said this many times, but that the next night after I beat Bam Bam, I was wrestling Mikey Whipwreck at the Queen's Elks Lodge, and I had this idea because I was always trying to outdo myself. I want to crotch Mikey on the guardrail, but come across the whole walkway, the entranceway, and springboard off the other guardrail and clear the whole entranceway and kick him. When he, what do you think, Paul? You think, think that'd be? He goes, it doesn't matter what you do. These people are gonna love you. And I really, I was like, whatever, weirdo. I had no idea what he was getting at, but total different energy immediately from the crowd, and it never went back. So they definitely held me in a higher esteem instantly. after that Bam Bam Bigelow match, no question about it. And the whole vibration of my relationship with the crowd was just like boom on a much higher level. So, that was great. I loved it. I loved wrestling Bam Bam.
Yeah, he was such a key part because he really got Taz to the point where he got Taz super over, and even Shane. When Shane, he's over, he's a big name, but when he beat Bigelow, it's like, oh shit! I don't know, you take more notice if you beat a guy like Bam Bam with a name, and even like Terry Funk, like those type of guys, you really establish yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. And as far as just extreme hardcore wrestling goes, Bam Bam was great at that. He was old school, so if I ever like really caught him with something, say I whack him with a chair and it hits him maybe harder than I intended or whatever. I always know when the receipt's coming, and it's like this mutual respectful thing because that's the way that I got brought in. It's like, okay, here it comes, and whether it's just a bam, it could be a really stiff clothesline on the floor. You can pick a table up and throw it at me or whatever. Is one move, bam, and then it's over. It's like tat for tat for tat, nothing personal. It makes the match better. It brings the competition up. And then just. And it looks good, and it's I love that. So, I miss him just like anybody.
Now, you mentioned before, like, you don't have a lot of guys in your inner circle, or you didn't have a lot of guys in the inner circle, obviously Sabu. But I thought it was so interesting that Brian Solomon did the Sheik book about Eddie Farhat, the original Sheik, obviously your trainer, mentor, Sabu's uncle. Was him like being your trainer? Was that a part of the I got to keep things like this? Because that literally was his gimmick, is he kept kayfabe to everybody. Is that why you were like that?
I still am because of that. I'm still offended by a lot of the stuff that I see nowadays because I was taught, and I know I hate it when people say I wasn't brought up that way because I say nobody was brought up that way. We have to adapt. Your perception changes when you're an adult. Yeah. In the wrestling business, I don't really feel like I have to change to adapt because I've been wrestling, 30 years and what am I trying to do? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to be true to myself. But it was the number one rule was to protect the business. Always, always, always was. And then somewhere way down the road, it became number one rule: safety first. Like what? That's so opposite. Like the way we trained. If you got bloody, that was good for the match. Made it look good, and there was no air allowed between anybody. My whole training with Sheik was all about grabbing each other and holding each other tighter, bringing each other in, whether it's a headlock or a waist lock or an arm lock. It was always about coming in and bringing in and squeezing. And anytime somebody was on their back on the mat, boom, you better be jumping on him, trying to pin him, because that's what you're out here doing, is trying to win. And that's not the way that I see a lot of wrestling today. So a lot of times, it eats me up. What's the right way to put it? Some things, are less than enjoyable for me to watch just because of that mentality, old school perspective that I have, because I see where it's missing. And I think that the audience might not exactly know what's missing, but they just know they're not as connected as they used to be, back in the day with other wrestlers when it was different. And I do know what it is, what it was, what's causing it. And so seeing that makes me think, what do they expect? I mean, what's it going to be eventually, unless it just goes straight up to like a Broadway play?
So you don't watch too much wrestling anymore, I'm going to guess.
Not very much. I record them all every week, and then sometimes me and Katie will watch something. Usually, I'll try to point things out to her, help her along, or sometimes we watch it a little bit. But yeah, I don't spend a lot of time watching it, And obviously, there's a lot of talented guys on there. I'm not trying to badmouth today's wrestling scene by any means. I mean, people like they step it up and up and up to where I don't even know if it means what it means anymore. Now someone does a springboard shooting star double flip to the floor, and it's almost like, who did that? Does anybody even remember? And it's like, man, it's it's a shame it got to be that way. But everything has to move forward. You know, we have less people on the planet. If you go back 100 years, it was easier to stand up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, that's true. To me, definitely somebody's missing. I don't the guys aren't as larger than life. I mean, there's some guys that stick out like Roman Reigns or Brock Lesnar or something like that, but I don't know, like there's not those larger than life guys. Back in the WCW, WWF, ECW era, I mean, it's all those guys were larger than life.
Yeah, it's almost like they decided that they would sell more tickets if the wrestlers looked more like regular people and if people could relate more. I don't know. And that is a factor. I mean, obviously, people can relate more when they are about the same size, same look. And then we have a lot more fans that just walk their way right into the business. And with today's cancel culture, nerf friendly, safe work environment that we have, it's easier and easier and easier for people to just get into the wrestling. Whereas, we had to get beat up and stretched and all kinds of stuff before we made it past day one. That stuff doesn't fly anymore. And everything has changed about the business so that now anybody can have a chance,
Funny, I was just talking to a couple old school wrestlers. They were saying like when they broke in, and we're talking about late 70s, early 80s, they breaking in. They're with professional football players. The football player doesn't make it through. They end up making it through, but it was almost like they got their ass kicked. And these pro football players are getting their ass kicked so much, but they just didn't want it enough. But nowadays, like, oh, anybody can get in. They're not going to kick your ass and see if you can stand the test of time and actually see how bad you want it. They'll train you anyway, even if you're not going to make it. So interesting. Like, wow, wouldn't you cater to this pro football player back in the day? No, they're going to kick his ass just like kicking anybody else's ass. They want to see if you have what it's got, in inside your heart. Like, do you have it to make it in the business?
Right. Yeah. And that's always been, the call on like who's training. It's their call to make. Do you take somebody's money and train them just for the money? And so you got an extra body in your class to take bumps? Or do you do the honest thing and say, look, man, you're never going to make it anywhere in the business? And, it was Bill Anderson in California where Ultimate Warrior and Sting came from that school out there. When I first went there and I saw they were charging $25 a workout, no commitment, anybody could go and just pay. That's when I realized, that it was the wall was blown down that was up when Sheik got me into the business. It was all about protect the business first, no matter what, and we sacrificed a lot to do that. Guys before me sacrificed even more, when I was in WCW, just thinking of someone to that extent, Mike Graham told us he never smartened his wife up the whole time that he was with her, married to her. He never smartened her up to the business. And she just assumed, that he was out fighting every night. And there was a rule when I was in WCW, you couldn't have your girlfriend or wife, if you have both, like some people do. They weren't allowed anywhere near the arena. Like if they were picking you up after the center stage taping or whatever, you would have to go to a spot upstairs in the parking lot where people can't see you. And you wouldn't get away with that stuff nowadays. You would just get sued in the, like I say, the work friendly environment that the whole world is becoming.
It's funny. I think there was like a meme or a GIF, whatever you want to call it, you and Katie and then the girlfriend, like, oh, I'm living my best life. It's so funny. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. New video on my YouTube page from Jennifer is in this as well because we went to Atlanta over the weekend. Katie's brother Timmy graduated and the family had a big party and rented these big water slides. And then we also got Jennifer and went out and Katie and I rented some scooters and went all over the beltway through the city and shit. And it's really fun. And I'm getting good at capturing content now, which people have asked me to do for 10 years. And now I'm starting to get it. It's not that much pressure if I just get, a little bit here and there and then put the highlights together and make a package afterwards. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
I just want to ask you about 2001. When you go to WWF, it's like, wow, you're probably the most over guy. Well, one of the most over guys. Austin is still there, obviously, but they're trying to make him a heel. It's just one of those things where, like, you're not world champion, but you're feuding with Jeff Hardy. You're having great matches. Then you're feuding with Steve Austin a little bit, Kurt Angle a little bit, having these great matches. Was it ever a thought of yours like, wow, like I should have been champion then? Like you were the most over guy? Because at that point, in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe Vince doesn't like him or something. You know what I mean? Or maybe because he's not from WWF. Does that ever like cross your mind? Like, man, I'm the most over guy here. Or one of the most over guys. I should be champion, or I should be higher up on the card.
I don't remember it feeling that way at all. I remember being very humbled. I think, the fact that I'm winning, Triple H comes out, hits me with a pedigree. Just over and over and over, I felt like at that time with that competitive state of mind, like, okay, how many times do we have to tell the story that I can't beat this guy, no matter what? Every time we work, I cannot beat him, even if I beat everyone else, and that's how I felt. And so I felt humbled. I didn't feel like I wasn't really riding the high that my character was. I was still being told some things, and then the plans changed at the last minute and stressing me out, and having like certain things told to me, conversations that were happening where people were for me, other people were against me, voicing their opinions. And there was always like so much going on that I never felt like I was the guy. I mean, I had my connection with the crowd, and that was my favorite part of the day. Boom, when I go through the curtains and I get that pop, I look around for all the signs. Everybody had an RVD sign. And I pointed at them and connect with them. All that was real. And I was like, no matter what they do to me, this is real. They can't take this away from me. That's how I felt. But at the same time, every year, when after WrestleMania, when they do a round of firing, everyone is so shocked. Like, oh, can you believe they let so-and-so go? And then, the egos that they have to feel like they're untouchable, and really feel like they couldn't be fired. I don't know what that's like. I felt like the whole time I was there, even though I was really connecting and I knew the fans loved me and I knew that I was loving my matches and all that, there was enough going on to balance that out in my head to where I still, felt like I was definitely expendable if they chose, to do this instead of this one time.
Yep.
For me, it was more like, oh, I'm not fired? Okay. That's how I felt.
Any heat there with Triple H over, like, maybe not now, but over the years that, like, oh my God, because I remember being a fan of those days of like, man, this guy's okay. He's got to be Booker T. He's got to be Michaels. He's got to be Kane. He's got to be Goldberg. Like, he beats RVD, he beats Jericho. Like, he's not that big of a star. Like, why is he beating everybody? Was there ever any heat with Triple H?
Well, I mean, I wasn't happy about the situation at the time. You know what I mean? Again, competitive state of mind. You don't look at it when you're across the ring from them and you're both competing for the love of the crowd. You don't look at it like, hey, this guy is not a CEO, but whatever his position was at the time. He is qualified to make important decisions. He sits in on the meetings. He's one of the guys that directs the paths of where the whole show is going. You don't look at it like that. You look at it more like it's not fair just because he's with the boss's daughter. And really there's so many more variables to it that you just don't consider at that time. And a lot of wrestlers don't grow enough to see the whole picture. So forever, their opinion will be like it is in the book they wrote, where they're like, if it wasn't for him, I would have, had a great career. But, really, it is what it is. But looking back, I had great matches with him. He's a really good wrestler. And at the time, I don't even think I could have admitted that, just because I felt, more like puffing my chest out and trying to fight for every inch I could get.
Funny, like looking back though, it's like, okay, like I wonder if RVD and Vince like have this good relationship. And then I watch the documentary, and then I see at the Hall of Fame with him, and you guys, it seemed like you have a great relationship with Vince McMahon. What's the relationship like with Vince? It just seems like not what I thought.
Yeah, no, we have a great relationship. He's I have nothing but respect for him. from my personal interactions with him, he's always been nothing but super respectful to me. And, from watching so many of his interviews that he does, I find myself agreeing with him almost 100% of the time. And I really learned to respect him the more I understood, about life, and just the more I grew. I feel like I was really immature when I worked with him and got busted with the marijuana and dropped the ball and stuff.
Yep.
Not that I'm necessarily above, something like that again, but I definitely dropped the ball, and I feel bad about that. And he's, the most important man that I know. So, that's really what I have to say about Vince. So I hope that he lives a long time. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to know him. He's probably the most famous man too. Well, maybe him and Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Were you surprised to get the call for the Hall of Fame? Not that God, it's well deserved. Maybe it should have been long overdue, but were you surprised to get it just because, I don't know, the Hall of Fame is so weird. Like the Steiner brothers weren't in it until last year. Like King Kong Bundy's still not in it. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing, the WWE Hall of Fame. So were you surprised at all to be inducted?
Yes. And at the same time, it's kind of like sometimes I'm surprised they don't reach out and ask me to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of like the same feeling where it's like and this is a future RVD Theology episode. I'm going to talk about expectations. Sometimes it's, living in the moment is about not allowing yourself to form expectations so you can truly engage with what's going on, because you have expectations, and that sometimes if reality doesn't meet what your expectations were, you're disappointed in a situation where really things might not be that bad, or maybe they are. Like marriage, a lot of people have expectations of what marriage is going to be like, and so they just want to get married, and that's so important to them. They end up with the wrong person, and then the relationship isn't like what they expected, and then then the whole life falls apart, and it's like there's reasons for everything. And that's a pattern that I can see going right there.
Yeah.
But
So were you expecting to be in the Hall of Fame?
No, I wasn't. I got to, whenever I get the 203 on my phone and I see that, I'm like, oh boy, what's going on? And it was Johnny, and he said, Vince, we're all sitting at the table, and Vince wanted me to give you a call and find out if you'd be interested in being inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. So of course I was like, well, of course, yeah, I'd be honored. And I was, and it was a really good experience. I wasn't shocked. I don't think anything shocks me anymore. Like you're lucky even to get an emotion out of me. But that's just like, when I get a call and it says 203, it's like, I wonder if they want me to sign some merchandise, or maybe they want me to. It doesn't seem like they're not trying to book me to wrestle, but I still think sometimes, like maybe it's something about a pay-per-view or whatever. The last couple times they called about wrestling didn't work out. Carano was involved in that. That was way long ago.
Yep.
But I guess it was after I made my return though. So this was like 2014 or something. Anyway, I think that they got it right. I'm guessing in the documentary, the Icons, when they say that I think that the WWE doesn't think that I want it enough. And so I think that's why they just kind of like leave me alone for the most part.
Could be.
Maybe because that's like I said, you're lucky to get an emotion out of me. I'm obviously very stoic. Same thing happens like when I'm filming movies. I remember the whole time I was on the Sniper Special Ops set, my friend was the director, Chris Olin Ray. He kept coming by like, you having fun? You having a good time? All right, you sure? And I get that a lot. Like when I'm around a bunch of people feel the need to check on me because I'm not going, out there dancing and stuff. I'm just like fucking looking at people. You're like, wow, look at them look at the nervous energy interacting with each other. And I'm studying people, and that's more like what I do. But a lot of my experience in reactions I keep inside, and I think maybe that's why WWE doesn't really fuck with me that much. They I don't know, but I'm still wrestling, and I don't want it bad enough to to be
begging them,
or even forward with my own plans and ideas about, dude, this should be great. I was thinking I could work with this guy and we could do this and this. I don't even, want it that much. Like that's not me. That's not the way my brain works. Whenever I get asked in an interview, is there any guys that you see that you would love to work with? I always can't answer anybody because I don't think like that. I don't do fantasy matches. Sabu doesn't either. So that's just a trait that we have is the Sheik's boys.
Yeah. That's so true about, like you mentioned, expectations too, because I did like a side job for somebody and thought I was going to get like a certain amount. My expectations were so set on this amount and it was less. My wife was like, well, you're lucky you got anything. And I was like, well, if I had that attitude going in, it would have had that, but I had the expectations. So I was so mad at the time. I was like, but you're right. If I had tempered my expectations, I would have been easy peasy. Would have had a nice, smooth reaction.
Yeah, and if you really like stretch that out and apply it to a really big picture like life, think of how many people thought they knew where they were going to be in life, whether it was married with kids or whether it was successful in the job. And just because they're at a point that's different than what they expected, now blows their mind. The plans are fucked up, and now they're judging themselves on being a failure. And it might not be a bad moment if you didn't have all that. You might be in a good place. So that's definitely worth talking about. What's what I do is I find some stories in my that I can remember or that I've written down. Where I can relate to that and wrap it up into a nice little RVD Theology package.
Yeah, awesome. As we head towards the wind down, we head towards finish. What's going on with RVD CBD? Is that still kicking ass and taking names?
It is indeed. I have tons of product around. We've been around 2.5 years ish, and through the pandemic and stuff, and I've learned as far as like partnering up with different people that we have been kissing a lot of frogs, and gotten a few good ones in between. And we managed to steadily grow. The best part is the feedback that I get, like all the time, like whether it's people I don't know or it's like friends, that have tried it, and they tell me that. Like I just got one yesterday from a kid I went to school with. He said his dad has tried all these products, nothing helps with his back, and the guy can't get up, walk around. Gave him some RVD CBD, a pain cream. He put it on his back. A few minutes later, he was up walking around, and he said he's never had anything work like that before. And it's like I get so much. In fact, 100% of the feedback that I get that makes its way to me is that. Can you imagine, like, how can you not feel like you're on the right path when so many people are telling you that? So that's great. I'm so happy to do that. At the same time, there's the other cannabinoids, and that's what I want to grow into, because there's CBD, which if people are saturated with THC, they're not going to try CBD, or that might not be for them. But people that don't smoke pot, they can use CBD as an alternative medicine, and everyone gets different results, but amazing results because it tells your own systems how to heal. It's kind of like hooking your truck up to a diagnostics test because you have this endocannabinoid system that's a message center that goes throughout your body, and the CBD, just like THC, it'll latch onto the receptors of your system and do a check and find out, mostly based on inflammation, just like anything. But sometimes other imbalances, and everything from thickness of bone, helping broken bones heal better, to regulating menstrual cycles, to of course anxiousness and helping sleep, and headaches, migraines. There's been so many reports that are, some of them are common, some of them not so common, that of ways that it helps them. So I want to keep exploring all the other cannabinoids too. You know, we only knew about THC forever with marijuana, and that was. Do we have a second? Do you want me to give you a quick education on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, check this out. So cannabis, marijuana was banned in the 30s. Harry Anslinger had to campaign state to state. He was an asshole getting it banned by all these lies. And William Randolph Hearst was pushing in his newspaper, oh, it makes kids crazy and everyone's getting addicted to it and blah, 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 the devil's weed. In 1947, Mayor LaGuardia said, you know, if I'm going to make this prohibited in my city, let me do my own tests and compare and see if all these claims are true. He tested it. You can look up the LaGuardia Commission report and you'll see the results from that test. Marijuana safe. You shouldn't prohibit it. You shouldn't be locking people up for it. There's no evidence of it being addictive, leading to other drugs, or of kids using it at an increasingly alarmingly rate. None of this is true. So Henry Anslinger buried LaGuardia's report and made it illegal to study the plant forever in 1947. So all through since then, it's illegal. All we know about marijuana is it gets you high. Now that it's getting quasi-legal state by state, now we're starting to study it in the last several years, and we're realizing THC, which gets you high, is only one out of over 100 different elements, little particular factors, cannabinoids that are part of the plant's personality. So you can take different cannabinoids and you can combine them, you can manipulate them, and you can actually, especially with enough study, learn to get different results that you want and also avoid results that you don't want. And I have seen where you can go to a doctor and you check boxes and you say, I want a formula that has, I want to be able to focus. I want to study. I don't want the giggles. I don't want the munchies. I want to be able to, I want to feel creative, I don't want to feel cloudy. And you check all these boxes, and a doctor that studies, that's really into that, will say, I'm going to recommend, this is a 20% CBN, 20% CBD, 50% THC, and then, 10% THC1, whatever. There's all these different, so that's where the science is going, which could replace at least 80% of pharmaceuticals, and that's why it's prohibited.
They got to make their money, big pharma. Yeah.
Yeah, not just that, alcohol, tobacco.
Well, yeah.
Everybody, not everybody, but everyone that rules the world, the evil 1%ers that make all the decisions. So now they're learning to control all the grow farms, and then they're going to flip the switch when they can profit from it, which they've been investing in for a long time. But so now I have RVD CBD, which RVDCBD.com is where we sell most of our stuff. We're in several stores in different states. We can mail that across state lines. RVD THC, that has to be grown and licensed separate in each state. So I got to have different partners on that. That's something that I'm doing right now, growing with. And like I said, we've kissed a lot of frogs, but right now there's more reason than ever to feel optimistic. There's just a fantastic implosion of all what seems like the right partners coming together. Networking has a lot to do with collaborating on distribution, on new items, on getting the product out there to more people. So super stoked about it.
And CBD has been growing and growing. It's one field that's really been big time on the growth. But it seems like, for the most part, it seems like a positive. You know what I mean? That there's not too many negatives out there about CBD. It seems to finally everyone's kind of catching up with it.
Yeah, I feel like most of the negative that I've heard is that people that have tried something that's bullshit, and I've read in reports that up to 70% of what's out there on the shelves is not what's claimed on the packaging.
Wow.
They have it at gas stations. They have those are. So I stand behind my product as the best. I sampled a lot of products before I agreed to each of my products, and I tweaked them. The pain cream, I wanted it to be like that BioFreeze.
Yep.
but be loaded with maximum amount of CBDs. You have also CBD receptors on your skin itself. And so it actually starts working right there and then goes into your system, and it tells you to heal besides the menthol that's loaded in there, so you feel it soothing, you feel it's circulating. I love my pain cream. It is, in my opinion, the best pain cream out of all the CBD products, and that's from all the ones that I've tried. So it's cool to be able to stand by that, being the whole effing show. I love it when people try the product and say, even when they tried other stuff, mine is what works for them, and that makes me feel confident about putting my name on it, because I worked a lot on making it the best.
Now, give me like the legacy of RVD, like the stamp left behind, because it's like funny. It's like RVD, the entrepreneur now, RVD, the businessman, but also the legendary wrestler, the Hall of Famer. Like, what do you, if somebody, years from now is like, man, that RVD, his legacy was what?
I don't know if that's for me to answer. And if so, then I'm not really sure how. I hope that I'm remembered for making a difference, for creating my own path and inspiring others to do that as well. I feel like my efforts have helped change the marijuana laws everywhere. I feel like my efforts have helped change wrestling. I feel like my efforts have helped change the way that a lot of people feel about the way that they fit into society in different ways. And that's based on feedback of people that have heard me talk on one of my platforms where I'm able to, to connect like that. I'm not, I guess hopefully I'm, instead of a follower, I don't think I'm necessarily a leader. I'm kind of taking my own path, but if others want to ride in my wake for however long it helps them out for, then I'm stoked for that. But as far as like labeling me entrepreneur, CBD, CEO, actor, comedian, I mean, as far as that goes, I can't do that. I just live. And I will keep exploring opportunities that interest me or that are beneficial at the time and worth pursuing. And everything is worth considering, like I said.
You weren't a big basketball fan, were you? You kind of remind me of Phil Jackson, the Zen master, a little bit.
I know that, like I could also do a whole series on things that make me different than everybody. And I might help people that feel like they're outcasts, especially when you're a kid. I hate that as a kid when other kids are like, oh, you bought those shoes at Kmart, fuck off. It's like, it's so hard and it means so much more to you as a kid than it really should.
Yep.
But I don't watch sports. I can't talk to another man about a lot of things that men talk about. I can't talk about sports. I can't talk about cars. I can't talk about guns. I can't talk about music. I mean, there's not too many people that I know that don't subscribe their soul to music. And I personally feel like when music's on, sometimes I use the word robbing my conscious, but let me just say it is at least subconsciously distracting my attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Song on, and you're just, you don't even know, and your lips are moving to the words to it, and it's not in the background, but you're trying to read a book or you're trying to think of something else. That's something that I didn't have anybody teach me. That's just me. Somebody made a comment the other day because they saw me working out, and they texted somebody that I knew and said they saw me, and they said, he works out with no music. I drive with no music
Wow.
a lot of times. And it's weird to me that music is such a big part of life. You wake up to music on the alarm. You have, even if you're going to watch a TV drama or comedy show, it opens with music. Commercials have musical jingles. Your phone rings, it's music. I think that music controls people to an extent that I maybe don't subscribe to.
What about Pantera Walk? No, you're not going to listen to that?
It's not that I don't listen to them, and I do get energy from music. I don't have like a preference. Sometimes I love that kind of music. Katie listens to hip hop, so a lot of times that's what's on, and I will listen to it. But I'm not a guy that's going to buy a ticket and go to a concert. If you see me at a concert, I'm not singing, I'm not dancing. I haven't bought a CD, if they even still sell those, and I don't feel like gyrating when I hear music. You know what I mean? Sometimes I really like the energy. Yeah, I can work out to this. I like the attitude. Yeah, it's in your face. But I don't know. It's weird. Like studying people like I do. People that dance, they have a dance face. And what's that? If you're not acting, then what is the dance face? Some people will bite their lip. Go, the fuck, and other people have a surprise look. And it's like everyone, like they put a certain face on when they start to engage in the dancing ritual. And I feel like an alien from another planet sometimes when I see society in the ways that they follow each other in directions I don't go.
To me, sometimes
I don't hate music. You know what I mean? Like I enjoy it sometimes, but like I said, I don't subscribe to it.
To me, sometimes you hear the music and like you'll equate it to wrestling or something. Like literally when Pantera Walk comes on, I always think of Respect Walk. RVD, you doing the finger points.
Of course, yeah. And there's songs when I hear it, I'll think about when Katie and I just met. There's certain songs I'll think about remind me of when I was a kid at summer camp. Yeah, I get that, but it's weird to me that how people like if it's in a song that's on the radio. Then it's real to them. I'll be like, well, what does that word even mean? I don't know. I think they mean this. Well, you're singing it. How are you singing it if you don't even know what they make words up and you're just gonna go ahead and blindly sing the words because they're doing it? I don't know. Maybe I should get checked out.
Before we let you go, though, give us all the plugs again. Talk about RVD Theology, where everybody can get it, and all your social media, and RVD CBD.
Yeah, so RVDCBD.com is the place to order our products and to keep up with us right now. We're always growing. We're building a new website and growing more products. People want to know where do I start with CBD? It depends on what results you want. The tinctures that you drop under your tongue, that's like the fastest delivery system. If you want help sleeping, great. You need help with anxieties, great. Gummies can help with that too. It's not as concentrated of a dose, and then you eat it with the sugar, so it has to, some of it gets, goes through your digestive system, whatever, but those work as well. But I'll say that, and follow them at RVD CBD. That's on Instagram or Twitter, whatever. And all my social medias are The Real RVD. I'm spending more and more time on my YouTube page. I want my subs to grow, so I'm going to start looking at contests and incentives and tier motivators to grow it, because I want to reach more people. Out of every 100 people I reach, there might be one with potential.
Awesome. Well, RVD, thank you so much for all the time today. I really appreciate it. We got a special guest in the background.
Hey, y'all.
Hey.
Yeah.
RVD, glad you're living your best life. Thank you so much for all the time.
Indeed. Right on, dude. So is this like